going to report to you what just
You're
took
not
place
getting,
while
you're
we're
not
on
getting
break for
nothing. I'm
1
just
hour.
connecting, John. I'm good to go.
Causing problems.
Andrew, you're good to go. Connecting.
Okay, I might have to get in a little closer for my mic.
She's already live.
I
We'll
am
go
already
ahead
live.
and get there. Well, everyone, we're down here at the courthouse again. We're in a break. The judge did not allow the jurors to come in. So right now they're having a council meeting up there for an hour, going over these motions we just heard, which Andrea will get into here in a second. The injustice that's happening in this courtroom is horrendous. It's sad that we're in this point in our country that these kind of things are happening, where defendants are not allowed to testify on their own behalf. They're not even allowed to bring witnesses in, and everything is being squashed. They're totally being gagged. And the only people that we've even had at this point are government witnesses that testify against these gentlemen, and it's horrible. We are so thankful so many people come here. I know I counted about 80 plus people in the courtroom, and I couldn't even count them all. And there are still people standing in the hallway that could not get in. We are so thankful that everyone came down here in support from everywhere, all over the country. These men needed to see that today and encourage them in there. They were extremely grateful. You could tell it on their faces. They were smiles today by seeing that. Andrea's going to go into this, what she's seen, and we'll try to help each other out here. There was a lot of notes here for the last hour here, and we try to get as much as we can, but go ahead here, Andrea, if you want to.
Well, I also would like to thank everyone for coming down here, and I'd like to bring up this statement right here. You know, these men are being bound and gagged inside the courtroom. They are not allowed to testify for their own defense. So I'm going to go right into, I'm going to jump forward just a minute into Marchese's reference, what he said to the judge after the judge said that they are consistently and purposely trying to break the court order, and that these defendants have a right to testify, to perjure another witness's testimony. They are not bringing stuff up that the government didn't bring up themselves, and that his testimony, when he said he was focused straight forward and up and to the right, was to perjure the testimony of Alexander Burke, who said, and she was to his left, who said that he looked at her, pointed his weapon at her, and then was scanning the crowd. So him saying that, no, my main focus was straight forward and up and to the right, was to prove that she was lying on the stand. And this goes so much further than their court order. What is going on here is they are allowed to bring in any evidence they want to. They are allowed to not bring in evidence that proves what these guys are saying. They said there's no evidence that there were snipers that have been brought into the courtroom because they won't let the evidence be brought into the courtroom. There is evidence that there were snipers. There is photographic evidence. There's video evidence that there were snipers. But because they won't enter that evidence, they can't bring that up in the courtroom. But him testifying that he was going straight forward and up and to the right goes directly to the testimony of Alexander Burke, and he is not allowed to even rebut any of their testimony. So basically, they are bound and gagged in the courtroom. He's representing Eric Parker down here on the court steps, saying these defendants are not allowed to defend themselves in the courtroom.
The question is that I have right now, who is they that is saying this primarily in regards to these statements that you've just gone over with us and bounding them right now? Who primarily has been saying these statements?
That is actually coming from the prosecution, from Stephen Myrie himself. He's the one that wrote the motion that they're not allowed to talk about the First Amendment zone, Dave Bundy's arrest, Margaret Houston being thrown to the ground, the BLM's heavy-handedness, the snipers. Any of that testimony is not allowed to be brought in, even though they're allowed to bring in Facebook posts from Stephen Stewart that talks about a lady that showed him a telescope to see the snipers. And so they're entering evidence that directly goes to these testimonies, and yet preventing these guys from testifying, saying, no, that Facebook post was about a lady that showed me binoculars, showed me a spotting scope to see the snipers up on the hill. You can't bring in that post and then not let us put it into context. that, they are violating every right of these defendants upstairs in the courtroom.
It's 100% a one-sided defense. One-sided. The government brought what they wanted to in and left out all this other terabytes of exhibits and information that's in the discovery. And they refused to play it in this trial, and it's a one-sided defense for sure.
Absolutely.
What about the one thing about how the judge abolished the defense and told them how they were defending their defendants, and that was wrong of them.
And they were part of a charade.
Purposely going against the court order, and that they keep asking, well, you're tying our hands and you're preventing us from making this defense. And she's saying like it's laughable. She's joking about it on the stand. Like, you guys are professional attorneys. You know how to get around this. And this is not something new. This is something, if we have a rape case, we prevent evidence that says you had a child out of wedlock coming into the courtroom because that is irrelevant. Saying that is exactly like this case. They prevented the evidence, the picture of the snipers from coming in, saying it's irrelevant. So what they're doing here is they're entering what evidence they want to, preventing actual evidence from coming in that would give them a defense. And so what they are doing is they are gagging them up in the courtroom in front of the jury. They say that we're trying to mislead the jury, but in actuality, they are the ones misleading the jury. There is photographic evidence of this entire event. Play the evidence and let the evidence speak for itself. But instead, they are refusing to enter the evidence and only entering testimony. The judge herself weeks ago said, and this is refers to a jury question where they said, when will we get to see this evidence? And she says, in many cases, there is no evidence at all, even though we know in this case that's not one of the cases, and that you may have to go on testimony alone. So they're going to rely on testimony alone and then not let you defend against that testimony.
And not let witnesses testify.
She admonishes the lawyers, saying that they're professionals and that they are purposely going against this court order, and that Eric Parker himself purposely went against this court order to distract the jury.
Is there a motion that was filed holding the defense attorneys in contempt of court?
They said, the prosecution said that they were not holding the defense attorneys in contempt of court, but they want stipulations. They want to see all of their closing statements before they are given, and they want Scott Drexler to give his testimony, just proffer it. So that's just the judge and the prosecution, and have things approved before it's allowed to go in front of the jury, so that the jury is not allowed to see the sham that happened with Eric Parker. We have not been able to see the jury and their response to this yet. They also want a jury instruction to be given to the jury when they come back into the room, stating that Eric Parker keeps trying to bring in irrelevant testimony into this trial, and that's why his testimony was stricken, and that you are not allowed to think about his testimony, talk about his testimony in deliberation, or try to come up with the answers to his questions that were objected to.
I think that's about it. We're waiting until a little after 11 o'clock to go back in. We've got too many people to fit in the courtroom all at once, so we're having to rotate to let everyone in there. Again, we appreciate everyone that's came out here today. It's for these defendants, and it's also to testify against what's happening in this court.
Was there, before you go though, was there anything that the judge said from the bench in regards that was untruthful in regards to the evidence being presented, and then how she accused them of cherry picking that information and some sort of government conspiracy, and that they were joining some sort of charade, the attorneys themselves?
That's exactly
what
the judge, I know, and I didn't write all that down because it was happening so fast, but the judge accused the defendants' lawyers of joining into a conspiracy to conspire against the government, that the government was they're accusing the government of a conspiracy pretty much, and that she was telling them that she was disappointed in them at their conduct of how they were vigorously protecting their defendants unjustly.
I have some quotes on that. She actually said, you guys keep saying in the courtroom, shouldn't the jury have a right to know? She said, this is a showboat. Your defendant continues to make a mockery of this court order. Once again, she's bringing up court order in the courtroom. This is why this judge is biased. She is so biased because she takes it personally about the court order and the fact that these BLM agents weren't allowed to finalize that court order, and now they have a court order against them up in the courtroom, and she is saying that Eric Parker is making a mockery of this court order by trying to defend himself. He's not allowed to say why he went. One of the only questions that he fully got out in his testimony is, did you go because of cattle? And he said no. And that was one of the only questions that weren't objected to during his testimony. What is happening inside this courtroom is atrocities. All of our amendments are on trial here, and they are being obliterated. If this isn't important enough to you now, you are going to realize how important once it is too late.
Would either of you say that the judge was almost defending herself in the way that she was presenting her words and admonishments, almost in a defense of herself for her own misconduct and actions last week? Not that she's admitting to it.
Well, she definitely defended herself, went all the way back to the beginning of the trial, saying how she gave these orders, that the lawyers should have gave these written orders to the defendants.
Accusing them of misperceiving her
Yep,
orders?
yep,
justifying her actions.
She justified it, and she was also justifying the government's right to what they were doing the whole time here. It's all she spent the whole morning doing so far.
Pretty much.
And she did not want to bring them jurors in. The jurors were supposed to be in at 9 o'clock this morning. That's what they were told. And she has kept them out of the courtroom so far all morning this morning.
Yep, we haven't seen
over
them.
and over again, trying to give the defendants an hour of time. An hour of time to do something. They said, we don't need an hour of time. We're ready to proceed, Your Honor. And she finally got her way. Gave an hour of time to the defendants and all of them to talk
her own
before they bring them
from
back
the
in.
bench.
We may not even get the jurors in at all this morning.
I can't thank you guys for the additional questions.
I was going to say, we've got Eric Parker out here today, bound and gagged, not allowed to give his defense. Will we have Scott Drexler out here today by the end of the day, bound and gagged, not allowed to give his own defense? That's what's going on in this courtroom. You are not allowed to testify in your defense. You're not allowed to speak of the reasons you came, of your state of mind, of your motives. So we have one today. Are we going to have two by the end of the day? I can't thank everyone enough for being here. Last trial we never filled the courtroom to where people were not allowed to come in. Today we have such a long line that we're trying to rotate and get everyone who's come all the way down here into this courtroom. And I can guarantee you that I will be out here during deliberation every day wearing a shirt just like this, that Eric Parker not allowed to testify in his own defense, because this is important. And we do have some media down here, and I hope that they are getting the word out as well. We need more. Call the media stations. Tell them to get down here.
Please
if
call
you're
today.
at home and you can't be here, call up all of these organizations and tell them they need to be putting this on the air. What is happening down here affects every American.
We live in America. Every person, every citizen in this country deserves a fair trial. That's afforded in our Constitution. Everyone should be. It don't matter if you're a murderer, a rapist, or who. You should get a fair trial. And you should get jurors of your peers. These guys here, they stood up for other people's rights. They should get a fair trial, and they are being denied when other people like murderers and rapists get a fair trial, and they're not.
Absolutely. How can they prevent us from calling witnesses? They called for the prosecution last time. There's so many things that are going on here that just aren't right, and it's being swept under the rug because the mainstream media won't get down here, won't report. That's why all of us, we the people media, are the only ones getting this out there, and we are preaching to the choir. We need to bring in the people that don't know what's going on here. We need to create an outrage in this country, because if it's happening here today, it could be you tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
Viewer had asked here, what explanation did Judge Navarro give for not allowing the witnesses to go before the jury, and also,
It's a self-defense type thing. You cannot defend yourself if it's victims or law enforcement. She said the victims here are law enforcement, and they cannot defend themselves against this.
She said that the previous testimonies from the other witnesses were not relevant. Dennis Michael Lynch and all his video footage is not relevant, even though it was relevant for them in the first case. Shannon Bushman and all his photos are not relevant, even though it was relevant for them in the first case. In fact, instead of calling those people, they just brought in an FBI agent to pull images off of Facebook and enter them as evidence. How it went in the first trial, Dennis Michael Lynch had to come in to enter his videos as evidence. Shannon Bushman had to come in to enter his photos as evidence. They just overstepped that bound by taking an FBI agent who pulls pictures and images off the media and off of Facebook and enters it as evidence, saying that it's a true and accurate representation, even though they were not the ones that took the picture and they weren't even there the day of.
Correct. And the evidence is not being the same evidence that was entered into this trial from the government, correct? And are they allowing the defense to speak to that evidence specifically that the government has already entered into the court when she said they were going to allow it? They were able to speak to that, but now they're not. Okay, I won't bother you guys any longer. I know we got to go. Thank you.
We'll have another update after lunch, I'm sure.
Another update later.
Like do a little bit of
That's a wrap. The only reason I did that is
get it off there.
I think they covered everything there.
I'm going to show everybody a little of what we've got going on here. We've got a pretty big group down here today. Hello, everybody. Here's all the tea that were thrown this morning. Lots of support out here today. So many people. We filled the courtroom. They got it so we were like crammed in there together and fit as many people, and we still had people waiting outside. This is amazing. Please share this and continue to stand with us today as we go through this